Okay, we'll just continue to talk about the move tool. Back to our little intersection here. If I take this guy and I say move and I say disjoin, okay, I can leave constraint on or off, that doesn't matter. And I go to move it and I've just picked two random points, here and here. What happens is it moves it and it disjoins it. Okay, but it doesn't do it. It leaves these corners. If you right click, these are still allowing joining. It's just that when you moved it, it's just joined it. Because if you don't do that and you take this and you say move and you pick two random points, it's going to try to keep, oh, I left my disjoin on. It remembers it from the last time. Here, move, okay, take this off, drag. Notice the numbers, 5 feet, 6 feet. You can go exactly 5 foot 10, click, place it. Now I didn't do the disjoin, so it pulled that wall with it. If that wall is tied to other objects or the floor or the roof, everything will update. So that's just something to be aware of and to note. Once again, always checking your options bar. Now when you do your move, you can say move first. So then you say move. Then you pick your objects. Oh, hold your mouse button in to do a window. Okay. And then you can continue picking more objects with your control button and your shift key and all that stuff. And when you're done, you either hit an enter or a space bar on the keyboard, and then you pick your points. Okay, I'm going to move those from here to there, and they get moved. No, I'm getting a warning. Inside, highlighted inserts overlap with each other. Okay, well, let's have a look here. Let's say, let's move this aside. And let's say expand and warnings. Window fixed. There's a window here causing a problem. Let's say show me. And oh, there's a window there that's not getting moved. That's now interfering with the wall. Okay. And we can see that now. Okay. And if we go to our south elevation, we can see the problem is that when I did my window, it didn't include this because I was down on my level 1. So I moved the lower level objects. Okay, move this guy out of the way. I moved my lower level objects, but I didn't move the upper level, and now that caused the problem. So watch, let's just do an undo and see what moves back. Boom. Undo once, undo twice, bring those trees back. Boom. So now redo, that's where my problem occurred. Now why that door up top? I think the door up top got included because that door is still, no, it's hosted by this wall. Not sure why it captured the door, but not the windows. The window included it just because it's right at that level. Very interesting. Okay. Undo that back to my main floor. Double click. Okay. So disjoin and constrain and use your move tool first. Select the objects or escape. Pick the objects first and then hit the move command. Okay. Again, always read your options bar. Okay. The next thing is you can move something just by using temporary dimensions. Okay. If I pick on this window, it's going to give me some dimensions. And I can just simply click in here. It says 5 foot 5.5. I change that to say 5 feet. It moves the window based on that. Okay. Pick on the window again. If you don't like where the dimension is referencing from, you can pick over here and you can go to a wall, for instance, and go tab, tab, tab to get the right surface, let go, then take this number, change this to be 5 feet, and it'll move it that way. Okay, if you have a bunch of walls in a row, okay, let's just do some basic walls here. Nothing too fancy. And I have my chain turned on, but I'm hitting escape in between to stop and start new segments. Okay. If you have a wall here, you can take this and you can drag it to a new point. If I change this number, it's going to move this. If I make it bigger, it'll go to the left. If I make it smaller, it'll move to the right. So you can always move objects by picking temporary dimensions, or if there happens to be real dimensions already in there, it's even easier to move them because the dimensions already exist. Escape. Then you can pick on here. If I move it this way, this wall will move this way. Okay, if I want to move this wall to the left, then I change this number to be bigger. Click out. If I take this number and make this number, it'll go bigger that way. So you can move objects simply by placing a dimension. And in Revit, you place dimensions to do this, and then in the end, you just delete it because you really don't need the dimension anyway. So feel free to go in anytime you want to move things by placing dimensions, and then pick the object, and then pick the number and change the number to be, something, and then it moves it that way, and then you can take this and delete it. Sometimes your temporary dimension that you get will work, and if you take that and drag it over to there, you can change this number. And the nice thing is, if you pick this back again, it'll remember that you moved that base point, which is a new feature in the latest version of Revit. So moving objects using dimensions. You can also take an object, and as you move it and you pick points, you can see those blue numbers. Whenever you see blue numbers, you can start to type. Move it 12 feet, pick, enter, it moves it 12 feet. Now it's giving you temporary dimensions here, and you can take this, tab to select a different surface, take this and make it, 7 space 9.5. 7 foot 9.5 inches. Pick out, there it is. Done. So moving objects using temporary dimensions, moving objects using permanent dimensions, okay, easily done. Okay, so that's another way. There's lots of ways to move objects. Moving it with just your press and drag, okay. You can use a control button and move it and copy it all at the same time by holding your control button while you press and drag. Next thing on my list here is selection sets. Of course, remember that when you take objects and you move them, that they stay highlighted. So while they're highlighted, that's the time where you can go Control C and copy it to the clipboard, or do a rotate. We'll talk about that. So they stay highlighted. Doesn't like that. We can remove that reference anyway. But they do stay selected. Okay. While you're moving, if you pick on an object and say move, you can zoom in to pick the point, zoom out, pan over, zoom in again, and pick another point to move that. Now you see the lines are fat. We can type TL on the keyboard for thin lines. It might be easier to see your edges if you have thin line turns on. That's TL on the keyboard. That way it will be ultimately thin. TL turns thin lines back off. You're always going to get this when it plots. Okay, so that just helps you to pick points and stuff. While you're editing, you can turn your thin lines on. So zooming and panning while you're moving. Okay. And the last thing I want to talk about here is moves with nearby objects. Let's take this desk for instance. There's desks, trees. Some objects have this, moves with nearby objects, as a property. Whenever you pick anything, it'll show you the properties. Okay. Walls don't have this. Okay. Windows, I believe, do not have this because they're hosted. But a desk, this little desk guy that I have, does have it, and it says moves with nearby objects. As long as it's parallel to the surfaces, if you take this guy and you rotate it, it won't necessarily work. Watch, if I take this wall and nudge it, I'm nudging and moving it, okay? It's not doing anything to the desk, but if I actually align to this edge, this guy, I don't lock it, escape, press and drag and pull that guy off. Okay. Now this one says moves with nearby objects. Watch what happens if I move this wall. If I move the wall, that's going to move with it, although they're not touching. Click, click, click. So it's a constraining method, which is simply a property, moves with nearby objects. This guy also has that same option. I'm not sure you'd want to do it with a wall unless it was a retaining wall. If I move this, okay, pick on here, moves with nearby objects, move the wall. Oh, not working. Now, wonder if I have to be a little bit closer. Click out. There we go. So there is a limiting distance. I think it's about 2 feet or something. If you pull this guy out far enough and you try to move this, oh, I'm not sure what the distance is. You could have a look in the help menu. So moves with nearby objects is an option where you can set up a constraint without really having to dimension anything or do anything. It's simply a property of that. Good for furniture and interior objects and partitions and toilets and sinks and urinals and stuff. That some are hosted by the wall, the urinals and stuff, but sinks and some cabinets, depending, are not necessarily hosted by the walls. When they are hosted by the walls, you don't have to turn that object on. It automatically moves with the wall. So that's a mouthful on 2 lessons on moving, and we will continue with our offset and copy commands next.